guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks for the second time today. It is 11:18. I still feel pink and yeah, my nose is red too.
Carhartt is kind of warmed up.
I've been working outside on the deck,
hammering away
today. And so what we decided to do, since our friend Tim can only help us on Sundays, is
happy anniversary to Poland.
Hey, I'm gonna eat that. That's a Polish chocolate, by the way. Anyway, so what we decided to do was to go live earlier for our European and UK news, and then wait until I could come, because I really, really have been so excited about today's Polish show. Yeah, we heard you.
Well, with the deck, and not just the Polish show. The
Remembrance Day. It's Veterans Day.
It's Veterans Day. So actually, because today's our Euro Day, I really wanted to focus on the 100-year anniversary of the ending of World War I, which was supposed to be the war that ended all wars. Obviously,
depends on who you are.
It didn't happen. It's kind of the war to begin all wars.
Kind of.
And so we're going to kind of talk about that and talk about what happened and how it happened and how things started.
So before you play this, I noticed in my brief research that I was doing before we went live that the mainstream media has, of course, commandeered the narrative for this and is labeling this a far right movement, which is ridiculous. It's Poland.
There's between 200 and 300,000 people here, and they are literally focused on a few wild crackheads who have signs that say, white Poland, white nationalism, right, blah blah blah.
And it's really interesting that this is something that we're seeing by and large, regardless of where you are in the world. The narrative is that if you have a few fringe people, then they represent the entire thing.
Exactly. Look how many people are here at this Independence March.
That's amazing.
11/11/2018. This is an entire country.
I think it was 200,000 people.
200 to 300,000 people. Here's their national anthem. Poland has not perished as long as we live. What the foreign force has taken from us. I want to stop here because I want you guys to recognize it. And unfortunately, in 1918, what happened in Russia was a Bolshevik revolution that would then, in the future, come and take over Poland.
Right.
And this was Poland's independence that was a little bit short-lived. But the sentiment of independence for them, it is so great, and it goes to 1918. An entire country come together. And I know that the mayor of Warsaw banned this entire thing, and the president and everybody had to step in because the president was going to show up. So like, hey, I'm coming, we're coming.
That kind of reminds me of something that would happen in America. We see the populist movement in Poland for exactly what it is, but our friends from IPPTV, Make Poland Great Again, just different Polish viewers that we have, they all tell us that there's still this communist undertow that still is there, and so the people are all mostly, as patriotic as you would want.
You know what they know how to do the best? Light up the sky.
They do.
They bring those torches everywhere.
Let me ask you this, though. How do you park for something? I mean, seriously. These people walked there.
What I love is that these torches are legal. But I don't know, like firearms, probably hard to get, but these are probably easy to
Are
get.
they just road flares?
Are they just road flares? Or they seem brighter than just regular road flares?
I think they're road flares. What do you guys think?
You can see some of them. So Poland's Independence Day is it's pretty powerful. So I'm gonna go over here to Donald Trump. He says the bond between America and Poland is stronger than ever, and he thanks to Trump, says ambassadors, and we talked about this a little bit, you guys, earlier. The Polish ambassador to the U.S. and the U.S. ambassador to Poland have penned a joint article hailing the excellent ties which have developed under President Trump as the Central European country marks 100 years of independence. Although once Europe's greatest land empire, during the days of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, famously riding to rescue Western Europe from a Turkish invasion. Do we have our Polish hussar behind us?
I made sure I centered that. Actually.
Thank you. And we have a little bear somewhere. I wonder where he went.
No, the bear's the Australian thing.
Oh, are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Famously riding to rescue Western Europe from a Turkish invasion. Remember that Poland staved off the Ottoman Turks and kept Europe from becoming an Islamic country.
We should all be thankful.
We should, and
for
so
that.
I am
Poland.
very grateful. At the gates of Vienna in 1683, the Battle of Vienna, we have all kinds of films that we've been given from our Polish viewers.
Our Polish viewers are wonderful.
To get us up to speed on Polish history,
which is necessary.
By the 19th century, Poland had been wiped off the map by its neighbors, Austria, German, and Russian empires. This state of affairs persisted until the end of the First War in 1918. When the Allied powers backed a proposal by the United States to make Polish independence a condition of the settlement with Germany and its co-belligerents. 100 years ago, this November 11th, Poland regained its independence thanks to the efforts of the Polish Prime Minister and Joe Wilson, among others, after 123 years of partition. Next year, the United States and Poland will also celebrate the centennial of the establishment of diplomatic relations, 100 years of joy, sorrow, tragedy, and triumph, but mostly of friendship and shared values. The friendship and cooperation between the United States and Poland determined many of the dramatic milestones of the last century, the pair observed, noting that the late President Ronald Reagan's support for the Solidarity movement, which helped Poland break free from the Soviet orbit and emerge as a democratic nation, paving the way for the fall of the Berlin Wall in East Germany and the total collapse of the Communist Empire in Europe. Today, the friendship and mutual understanding between President Trump and Andrzej Duda enhances a strong history of cooperation between our two nations, which are enjoying a high point in bilateral relations. I know that Poland would love a United States military base.
They're really cooking for that.
They're gunning for that. The presidential and parliamentary elections, which put Duda and the Law and Justice Party in 2015, were an early harbinger of the populist revolt across the West in 2016, which reached its highest point with the Brexit vote in Great Britain. And President Trump has indeed enjoyed close relations with Poland's conservative populist government since entering office. So I was, remember President Trump visited Poland. It was one of his first stops last July. Fondly recalls the incredibly warm and welcome he had and the First Lady received on the street of Warsaw. President Duda and First Lady Agata Duda were honored with a similarly warm welcome in Washington, D.C. this past September. Donald Trump tweets out, Poland, a great country. Congratulations on the 100th anniversary of your independence. I will never forget my time there.
Aww.
And I feel like the really great leaders reach out to people and know what's going on in this realm of this populist movement. And this gives me
hope. You know who your allies
courage. Exactly. This gives me hope and courage to see a Salvini tweeting out to Donald Trump and the President of the United States tweeting out to Poland. So I'm going to bro over some of these videos. This says 100,000 people. I think there were close to...
They always underplay it.
200 or 300. I mean, just a massive amount of people. And we know that somebody is going to, at the end of this, put together a really neat compilation.
Like they have in years past with awesome music and whatnot.
But we're going to show you just the videos that have come out today. Jack Pasovic is there, and he is actually Polish.
Oh, wow.
So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he is Polish. He says Poland knows the cost of freedom and what it takes to get it back.
Wow. You guys. That's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Stefan Molyneux posted.
And here they go with their word slurs. They're all going off.
Yeah, it's fun when they all do it together. They know how to light up the sky, don't they?
Jacob says 250,000 confirmed after the march by police statistics.
I'm wondering what it was last year and in years past. I have a feeling that it's just growing and getting bigger and bigger.
So Apple Mark says, can we pull the mic closer? It's set up where it's always set up. The settings are the same. I can't change anything. I wish I could.
Anybody want to translate? Feel free. We're just going to listen to these beautiful patriots sing their song. Polski. Got it, baby. Polski. Everybody with their cell phones can capture the movement.
While we're watching this, I want to address something that, if you're not from Poland, maybe you don't understand. When we here in the United States celebrate our freedom, our Independence Day, I'll get them in a minute, you don't see this kind of unity of an entire nation, not only because of the division that's happening in our country, but also because I don't think you guys understand what it's like to have your entire nation under communism.
Well, and more than that, and before even like World War I, to have it kind of broken up into pieces for other people. Why is that important? Michelle, if you could help me open this up for people. One of our viewers last year sent this to us, and what I love about it is not only the fantastic art, but this is Polish history through pictures. And I actually love some of, hold on, like, let me get to the, let's see, some of the beginning pictures where it talks about the Christian beginnings, like back in like the 1300s. Let's see, here we have the christening of Poland. Basically, Poland was to transform from a tribal structure into a state within the circle of Christian civilization. Through history, though historians have not established with all certain the precise location of the Duke and his kin's baptism, the impact of the AD 966 christening on the history of Poland is unquestionable as a guarantee of the country's immense civilizational progress. Becoming the prop of power, the church was to affect the state's development in all fields of the life by laying the foundations of efficient administration. In fact, however, the Christianization of Poland was a long process, continuing practically to close Middle Ages. And the first king at coronation in 1001. I mean, and some of this art is just absolutely just impeccable. And I wanted to give you an idea that their history goes back so far that it's hard to imagine the significance of their re-independence in 1918 when you have your first king in 1001 AD, and what happened to this country.
Right.
And so to have and a lot of these pictures depict Christianity. There's ups, there's downs, there's a lot of wars, but what you see is that Christianity kind of brings the civilization. And Poland is the epitome of what we call westernization, Western civilization coming out of the Dark Ages and through the Middle Ages. And they've had ups and they've had downs and they've had falls. What?
I'm just looking at this art, and I'm not that intelligent, but you could really break it down. I mean, we have a king here of some sort bowing down almost, it seems like, and paying obeisance to this guy who looks like
all you have to do is read things you really want to.
Well, I'm just saying, like, the art itself speaks.
Yes.
You don't have to know anything about Polish history, and you can kind of understand just from the art.
That is what this book is supposed to represent, is this great art actually...
It's just Kansas.
...tells the story of Polish history and going through... they had, I mean, some of them are just, I mean, they're main dudes, these Polish hussars who fended off invasions from time and time again.
Right here.
Here we go. Yeah. The Polish hussars in
the Battle of Chokum
with the wings.
1673.
With the wings. Some of this art is just absolutely just impeccable, and the buildings, and when you see something fall, you want to see it rebuilt, and the great architecture that is in Poland, and the fact that, you know, during world wars, so much in Europe was damaged. And Stefan Molyneux gave this statistic, if I can find it. Let me read you. Let me play this, and I'm going to go. I want you to read a statistic from. This was just absolutely fun. He went. Jack Posovic went. But the damage done to Poland during both wars, was so immense that it crippled them and allowed the invasion of Russia, the Bolsheviks. But I want to read to you these statistics here. He's obviously having a wonderful time there. 1 in 5. Okay, during World War II, Poland lost 38% of its national assets. Britain, you think of Britain and you picture everything being blown to bits.
Right.
Lost 0.8% of its national assets.
Oh my gosh.
And France only 1.5. You think of the devastation there. So 38%.
That's huge.
1 in 5 Poles were killed in World War II. 1 in 5.
Wow.
Britain and France betrayed Poland, and I say America too, in September 1939 and again in 1945. 50 years of totalitarianism. Independence Day matters. Given Hitler's brutal invasion, occupation of Poland, you're about as likely to get a Nazi march in Israel as in Poland. And what Mom had said earlier is, why would you have a neo-Nazi in Poland when every Pole knows that their greatest enemy was Hitler?
Right.
And he was even worse than Russia, because Russia was supposed to defend Poland from Germany, and they felt incredibly betrayed.
Right.
Because what happened was Hitler weakened them, and then Russia came in after the war was over and took over, and immediately took over with Bolshevikism.
Patriot Gallery.
I just wanted to clarify some definitions on words like republic and democracy. Today we have a lot of people who use the word democracy or democrat, and then we have republic. And you have China who calls itself the Republic of China.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, well, republic means you have a set of laws somewhere that everybody lives by. And democracy means you vote. And so in America, when we set up our republic is actually based on the Bible and on the Word of God as law.
Yeah, right.
You go back until 1950, you could use the Bible in the courts for the law. Because in a democracy, if everybody votes, everybody could vote to kill all Chinese.
Right.
But you can't do that. There has to be a set of laws. So democracy doesn't always win. And you see the Democrats always saying the most people who are the populist vote, they want, why we have the electoral college is so the populist vote doesn't win.
Right.
You know, they talk about Gore getting the most votes or Hillary getting the most votes, but it's not about the most votes, because the most votes, we can find that the most votes could give you the evilest things. So a republic has to be set on a base law separate and apart from the people voting, and that's what a republic should be. China calls themselves a republic. It's not a republic. China calls themselves a democracy. It's not a democracy. So today we have confusion of words. So we have to be, if you're going to talk about Poland, Poland wanted to be their own country and to be able to elect people and vote for people, but they also want to be a republic. They also actually do want to be based on the Word of God. It's a very Catholic Christian country.
Absolutely.
So they do want Christian principles. And so you have to have, the Bible is a set base, doesn't change throughout the centuries. So it's a set of laws that everybody can believe are good. Love your neighbor, love your mother and father, don't have affairs, don't murder.
We're talking about natural law of nature and nature's God, like John Locke talks about, that are understood.
Yeah, so I just want to make a distinction. There's lots of people out there, like, you opened it up saying the media said this is right wing, and you said no, it's Poland.
Right.
Polish people want to have a republic where it's based on a set of laws like Christianity, because it's mostly a Christian country, and they want to have a democracy which, in the bounds of the Bible, within the bounds of certain principles that do not change, like the Ten Commandments, they don't change. Do not steal. Do not falsely accuse other people.
Right.
Within those, don't lie. And the government isn't the end of all. Government isn't all powerful.
No, the people are.
The people can use the Word of God and say the government broke the law, like when they made highways. They stole people's land. They said, well, we paid them for it. But what if they didn't want to give you that land?
Right.
And so people have to, individual rights come from God. Then you can use the Bible against the hugest corporation. You use the Bible against the hugest government wants to take from you.
Right.
And so that's why individuals are so important in America. And that's what Poland said. Each person in Poland wants to have the right to have their rights, their human rights, the right not to be lied about, right not to be stolen, right not to be killed, upheld. And that's why we have government to uphold these laws. So I just want to make sure that people know, if you believe in democracy, Democrats or democracy, well, their democracy is most people vote for something even evil.
Right.
We can't have that kind of democracy. Right. And so you got to know your verbiage and your language, and everybody has to be on the same page when they use words and not have people be hypocrites, call themselves Democrats or call themselves, they're hypocrites, because if you want socialism, communism, then you're not a Democrat, you're not a republic.
Right.
Okay. The mic is on, right?
The mic is on.
All right. So I love what Mom said about being a republic versus a democracy. I love some of these comments here. Polls are tough. I like that, says Eric Butler. Poland want to save Europe, but West Europe is mostly dead. Poland was before 1960 or 966, absolutely. But I was trying to get to the first christening of when Christendom started there. We stopped Islam in 1683. We stopped communism in 1920. Had to really take out, when I watched these movies that we were sent, it was so sad because so many Polish men were massacred.
It's awful. It's
just, you guys have really had to build up your population. The whole world thanks Poland and gives us pierogies. Right. I love Polish beer, but it's very expensive here in Scotland. 9% proof. Let's see. We're talking about Prussia. Well, let me give you a little example of Prussia. What they're talking about, Prussia was kind of a conglomeration of city-states that were later split apart. But our education system on how to rule and control people was taken from Prussia because they wanted to have people who would be great soldiers, not necessarily good thinkers.
Yeah.
Because if you think straight, sometimes you won't go straight into battle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're going to wonder, why am I fighting?
Well, and that's why they usually go after the young men to get them straight out of high school or younger.
There were a couple more good comments.
Hang on Facebook Live, which we don't go to very often, but we've got a few people here today. I don't know who's, forgive me for not knowing, but Big Sarge, I did check out your Facebook page. Don't know who you are, but he does have a channel or videos of sorts. You guys can go to the Facebook and check that out for yourself. It looks pretty good to me. But I don't like when we kind of ignore the Facebook Live, because the chat recently there has been
happening.
Totally happening. So I wanted to let you guys know that we are here and we are watching you, and we are glad that you're here with us.
So there was a couple more comments. You guys are just really on fire today. This really means a lot to all of you. Talking about the Polish food. Polish invented, I don't know if I think that
you
was
did
George
not
Washington
invent peanut butter and
Carver
jelly.
on that one.
Yeah, peanut butter.
Yeah. But I want to show this because this is after the march. Now look at the streets. Do you notice anything?
I noticed that they're clean. You know what we see on the streets? We see some leaves.
250,000 people, and it's not trashed.
I wonder if you couldn't look up, after the Women's March.
We covered that. There were signs everywhere. There was trash everywhere. Everywhere
food.
Liberals go, it's just a
So do you think
daggum
that
mess.
the city officials sent out cleaners
No.
to come and clean up after these people right away, Leah? Do you think it's possible that many people can gather together and not leave an ounce of trash lying around?
And what it shows is that they really love and respect their country.
Right.
Such beautiful architecture. That's what I wanted to get to, the history of Europe.
Yeah.
Why do we want to save Europe? Because it's my history.
Yeah.
And it's Christians' history. It's civilization's history. We came out of the Dark Age. We came out of archaic times together.
Yeah.
We all came out of this together. It's this, the architecture when you go to Europe. I've been only to Russia. But even there, the architecture is beautiful and stunning. But I know it's even more beautiful and stunning in some of the places like Poland, and obviously in England, our good friend Horatio makes sure that it stays that way. When you have something that's so beautiful, I do appreciate when the government steps in and makes sure that it's not overrun by a McDonald's or some crass-looking, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like, natural.
Barry says, something a lot of people don't realize is that the Free Polish in UK actually fought in World War II Battle of Britain and helped save the UK and the free world from Nazi rule.
Yeah, the Poles are always fighters. That's what I've been noticing from our viewers, from our Polish friends. The men and women, they are fighters.
Edward Wallace, Polish 5,000 calorie dinner, and no one is fat in Poland.
Awesome. So I wanted to play this because this is how Polish people deal with Antifa. Ain't having it, Jack. You're not part of my march.
Oh my goodness.
Antifa, go home. Wow.
Okay, whoever the camera people are that are trying to get in the middle of that, like, how about no?
How about
That's
no?
a real fight kind of breaking out there.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
I'm paid by George Soros. I'm going to take my flight. I'm going home. I'm out of here, Jack. Going home.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going home.
You guys need to understand that in Poland, and I can't stress this enough, this Independence Day, this 100th Independence Day.
It's so big for them. It's like
so
the biggest day ever. Like, not even kidding you. And the Warsaw mayor wanted to make them not celebrate it. Here's a little thank you
Unbelievable.
to the Polish forces. So,
We, the people of Poland, mark our 100th Independence Day.
A rebirth you helped us regain.
Entering World War I, America declared
An independent Polish state should be erected.
That generation fought for your freedom and ours.
Knowing freedom isn't free.
So, this Veterans Day, we say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dziękuję. Is that right?
Dziękuję.
Dziękuję.
I think
Dziękuję.
we've tried to learn some Polish.
Yeah.
Not successfully, really.
Here's another one. I've been to dozens of massive Trump rallies, but Poland's 100th Independence Day is, it's totally different. It's totally different. Trump being president, it's nice and everything, but this is everything to them. They're trying to rebuild their country. They need Polish babies. If there's one country that has been wiped out of population-wise that needs to be making babies, every Polish family should have 8, 9, or 10 babies.
Yeah.
You need to. 1 in 5 Polish people died in World War II. You deserve to be making them babies.
If you are new to our show, you may not realize that our regular viewers know that one of my favorite times on our show is when we get to talk about how we encourage everyone in their nation.
We're very pro-life,
to make babies for their country, regardless of race or ethnicity, whatever. We don't care. If you live in a country, you need to be making babies for your country. It is your civic duty.
So I found that this was interesting. Mel Gibson is wishing Poland a happy anniversary.
Hey, Poland, you're celebrating 100 years of regaining your independence. You're a beautiful nation with an amazing history, and I wish you all the best.
There you have it from Mel Gibson.
Do you think it's just because he's Catholic? I mean, what do you think the motivation behind that was?
Maybe.
Tim Smith from Poland says, my mother was one of 7 children. Wow. So your grandparents were doing their civic duty.
They had to make up for it. Yeah, that's
You
awesome.
have to do it.
Look at all these people. How exciting that must have been.
You guys, look at how calm and peaceful these people are. Imagine that amount of people gathering anywhere else in the world. Would it be as peaceful? Would the streets have been as clean?
I love all the people get together and carry these giant flags. And I'm sure it's freezing. So I love, like last time there was like signs that said, we love you.
Jacob
King
says
Jesus.
that there's another clip with Mel Gibson about Poland, and it's about 3 minutes long.
Today, thousands of people gathered in Warsaw to celebrate Poland's 100th Independence Day. Meanwhile, Latvians celebrate 99th day of victory of National Army over Vermont. So, candles, lots of people. I thought this was adorable.
Linda says, really? Is he being sincere? I think so.
Yeah. I liked the red and white umbrellas for their celebration.
Oh my gosh, it's so great.
Isn't that adorable?
Oh, I love it. What a great decoration.
Yeah, I think...
There it goes. Just, I mean, all those people. Oh my goodness. Could you imagine the electricity?
Yeah.
By being surrounded, you know, as Christians, it's something that non-Christians may not understand is when you run into another believer who has a relationship with Jesus Christ, there's this connection there. Okay. And I have heard that said about many different types of people, not just Christians. Black people say it about black people, motorcyclists say it about motorcyclists. You know, it's, there's just some sort of camaraderie in this and this connection. And what I see amongst the Polish people in a moment like this is this connection. I don't care what your belief system is. I don't care where you come from. I don't care if you are rich, if you're poor, if you're more liberal or you're more conservative. You love my country. We belong together, and we can unite under that. And so they're in that. They're able to put their Catholic and Protestant divisions aside and just come together under the umbrella, no pun intended, of being Polish and being so excited about their independence.
I had another video I can't find, but it was Polish people who are all over Europe, and they used all different demographics of people. They used Black Polish people, Asian Polish people, just kind of to show the diversity. I thought it was really cool, but I can't seem to find it.
Shoot.
Poland is celebrating 100th anniversary of its rebirth. It's an independent state on Sunday with a multitude of events across the country. So it's happened today, including marches, masses, and a national hymn being sung in more than 600 public places. So can you imagine going to that public place? I'm guessing with a country the size of Poland. I think you could open up. I think you could open up your window and hear it sung.
Oh, absolutely.
With 600 public places, you know?
Exactly.
Right?
For sure.
The national red and white flag, we're wearing red and white today, fluttered from buildings and buses. Dignitaries and regular citizens placed flowers and wreaths at memorials to the father of Polish independence, Marshal Józef Piłsudski.
Don't even try. It's
close enough. And the historic Sigismund bell, reserved only for the most important national events, rang out over Krakow. Poland regained its independence at the end of World War I. We're going to kind of segue into that in a moment. In 1918, reborn from the ashes of 3 defeated powers. So, if there is something good that came out of World War I, maybe the rebirth of Poland,
absolutely,
is one of those
things.
It's
not even a silver
lining.
Rising, that's amazing.
Phoenix, from the
fire,
ashes.
from the ashes, yeah.
Reborn from the ashes of 3 defeated powers that had partitioned and ruled the Central European nation for more than a century. The ceremonies in Poland, I think Sydney might need some help, coincide with world leaders gathering in Paris on Sunday to mark the armistice, and Trump was there, Macron. So world leaders gathered today in France to mark the armistice of the 100th year anniversary. They're supposed to end the Great War. To mark the occasion, Foreign Ministry in Warsaw released a video with citizens of countries from the United States to Germany to Japan reading out the diplomatic cable. Okay, that's what it was, and I'm going to play this. Okay, here's what this was. So what it is they the Foreign Ministry in Warsaw released a video of citizens from a bunch of other countries, United States, Germany, or Japan, reading out the diplomatic cable. I guess people who speak Polish, because I thought they were Polish people because they really spoke great Polish. Right. This diplomatic cable from November 16th, 1918, that informed the world about the creation of the Polish Republic.
Wow.
Signed by Pilsudski, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, it declared that Poland wishes to notify the governments and nations of the existence of an independent Polish state encompassing all the territories of a reunified Poland.
It gives me goosebumps.
Yeah. Here we go. So this was a cable sent all over the world, and that's why they're using people from all over the world to read it in Polish.
Polish Warrior says, what a great day for us. 300,000 in Warsaw Independence March. God bless Poland and USA forever.
I love it.
Applemark says, Leah, thank you for the cultural history lesson on today's program about Poland. It's so enjoyable.
As Commander-in-Chief of the Polish Army, I wish to notify you and the government and the nations of belligerent and neutral states of the establishment of the independent state of Poland,
incorporating all United Territories of Poland. The political situation in Poland and its yoke of occupation had not allowed the Polish nation to freely decide on their own future. Thanks to the changes that took place after the great victories of the armies of the Allied powers, the revival of an independent and sovereign Poland has become an accomplished fact. The Polish state is coming into being upon the will of the Polish people and is based on democratic principles. The Polish government is going to replace the rule of force that heavily weighed on the fate of Poland for 140 years by a political system based on order and justice. Basing on the Polish army under my command, I hope that from now on no foreign army will ever enter Poland without the formal expression of our will in the matter. I am convinced that the powerful democracies of the West will provide their help and fraternal support to the Polish Republic, reborn and independent. The cable which told the world about the creation of the Polish Republic was a symbolic document for Poland, which had been reborn after 123 years of partitions. Signed by Pilsudski, composed in French, the cable was radioed to the Polish National Committee in Paris on the 16th of November 1918 and published in Monitor Polski. Next, the missive was addressed to the U.S. President, the governments of Great Britain,
and everybody else.
The cable is now part of the Polish diplomatic history and one of the most important documents of the Polish Foreign Service. Apparently, whoever did the subtitles thought that anybody that reads English can read it very fast.
Poland's regained independence fulfilled the dreams of generations of patriots who had kept the language and culture alive despite foreign rule and repression. Though Poland was ruled by Russia, Germany, and Austria, and effectively was wiped off the map as a state, it was nonetheless a great age for Polish culture, reproducing the compositions of Frederick Chopin. And so
Chopin.
Now,
I don't know when we're going to get to this.
I think this is a perfect time because as we go into World War I, we're going to be speaking a little bit more about Britain and things like that. So I think if we're staying on Poland,
well, we can't
this
really...
is Marcin's package,
right?
And we should go into this now, right now.
I think.
So the last time I played the Chopin, the YouTube picked up on it.
I know.
So I want to play these in the background, but the YouTube might pick up on it and make me, and it won't allow me to download it and reproduce it onto Resistance Chicks.
Now,
so Marcin sent us what? Did you lose the letter?
Okay, first of all,
tell me you didn't lose the letter, girlfriend.
Losing is a strong word.
We didn't read it on Friday so that we could read it.
It's in my stack of papers. However, why don't you could do this one from...
Okay, so I want to show you guys what Marcin sent. Okay, I don't know what that says, but it looks good. All right, I'm going to play it. I will feel it. Okay, we played Chopin Polish songs for you on Michelle's birthday.
From Jane, the anonymous American in Europe. And she starts out her letter talking about Poland, and I haven't finished it.
Piano,
but you could start with that while I find this letter.
I'm going to keep showing you more. This, I think she must be famous. She's playing Chopin, right? And then this orchestra here. I will play these, but I can't play them for you. You're going to have to get your own.
So Marcin's letter was printed, and he left this card. And this card says open on Christmas Eve.
Okay.
And so I remember it was printed that much, so I know what I'm looking for. You read that.
Okay. So not only Chopin and the works of the great Romantic era poet Adam Mickiewicz, which largely revolved around the yearnings for Poland's rebirth. Through it all, the Roman Catholic Church played a key role in keeping the language and identity alive. Compilations of Polish historic achievements in 1918 are inevitably shaped by the knowledge of what came later, with Poland to be invaded and occupied yet again in the 20th century by the Germans and the Soviets, and then being under Moscow's influence during the Cold War era, and them being totally free right now. Not totally free because now they're under the EU power, and standing up to them. And I want them to know that we stand with you. Michelle found Marcin's letter. We stand with you, Poland, and we aren't going to stand by and let the EU walk all over you anymore. All right? We Americans know what's going on. We know what's happening. All right, read your letter.
Marcin.
Now, Marcin.
Dearly Michelle, on November 11th, Poland celebrates our Independence Day. The upcoming one is a special one, as it marks our 100th anniversary of regaining our independence after 123 years of non-existence as a sovereign country. As Sydney helps with the camera angles. She's good at that. I can't... Oh, the hallway light is on. Can you go turn that off?
Yeah.
That always is very distracting. I'm so red from today. That's cold, chapped face. I'm working on a deck. All right.
I'll shut these out so you can...
We lost independence in 1795, but our ancestors never accepted this situation, and as a result of conjoined military and diplomatic actions, we finally made it back on the map in November 1918, and we are here to stay regardless if anyone likes it or not. So here's a little present on the occasion. I imagine you like music, of course we do, because you often end your shows with songs, so I went for music. Most of the enclosed albums contain multilingual booklets, also in English, so if you wish, you can read more there. But here's my own 2 cents, or as the phrase goes in Polish, about them. I have no idea what that is. All right, so the first one that says Rockizanka, I'm just going to pronounce it in English because that's the best I can do, is a Polish folk band whose videos so far gathered 25 million views on YouTube. I'm very happy they are successful and that a lot of my fellow Poles cherish this music because folk music is an inherent part of each nation's culture, part of its identity. To me, it's super important to know one's own history and culture, especially in the global village times and in the age of media manipulations. Hopefully you'll like this music, though I imagine it's not music you'd typically hear on the radio. It's probably worth to mention one guy who loved folk music and was inspired by it while composing his own works was Frederick Chopin. Now, then to the Chopin CD, 1810 to 1849. Chopin's music is defined by Polish culture, history, and seemingly hopeless geopolitical situation in the 19th century. Our former territory was divided between 3 countries, and active measures were undertaken to uproot Poles from our national and cultural identity, together with many, many other people, for instance, painters, writers, teachers, teaching in secret under heavy penalties if discovered. By the way, one of such teachers was Maria Skolowski-Curie. Marie Curie. Chopin's work helped to preserve Polish identity. I chose 3 albums with Chopin's music. Wilinska plays Chopin. Not an obvious choice, I know, like we would know. When you think of Chopin interpreters, you do not think of Beata Wilinski, but even though she's not a well-known pianist, she is a very fine one. What I also enjoy about this album is the selection of pieces and their order. A lot of Chopin albums these days are thematic. For instance, the whole album of Nocturnes or the whole album of Polonaises. This one is different. I don't even know what that word is, and I play music. This one is different. It's structured like a piano recital. It presents very many faces, so to speak, of Chopin's music and constantly makes the listener curious. What comes next, and when it finally ends, you know it's the ending, and the climax is a very strong note. Polish songs, the songs, with singing are probably the best known area of Chopin's music. I even once found a comment online by an annoyed customer who bought a copy of the same album I sent you. The unfortunate buyer was complaining that he thought he bought Chopin's music, but there is singing in the album. Chopin composed music to the poems, thus creating songs. Throughout his whole life, I guess he treated it as sort of a guilty pleasure, as he did not publish any of these during his lifetime. They most likely would have been lost if not for one of his friends who collected them, and they were published after Chopin's death. The songs are naturally in Polish, and the language barrier might be the reason why not many non-Polish singers attempt them. Still, Polish opera singers perform them often, so there's a number of recordings to choose from. I listened to, I think, all of them, and I'm sending you my favorite one, sung by mezzo-soprano Ursula Krieger. So, Christian Zimmerman and Polish Festival Orchestra, Chopin Piano Concertos. To many, this rendition of Chopin's concertos is the definitive one. Some even claim that this recording ruins other recordings. While personally I would not go that far, Christian Zimmerman and the Polish Festival Orchestra's performance is truly marvelous. They had specifically one goal in their minds, to master these 2 concertos. They did not practice anything else. Fun fact, the orchestra was conducted by the pianist himself, who did that from behind the piano keyboard. Ignacy Jan Paderewski, 1860 to 1941, Symphony in B minor, Polonia. He gained his worldwide recognition as a spectacular concert pianist. For instance, his tours in the United States were highly successful. He was also a composer, and I'm sending you his Polonia Symphony, a monumental work in which Paderewski attempted to describe the history of Poland in music. The work is divided into 3 parts. The first one, Poland's glorious past. The second one, current struggle. It was completed before regaining independence. And the third one, hope for the future. Paderewski, I don't even know I'm totally butchering that, I know, was a very smart guy and a patriot. He gained extreme popularity as an artist and decided to use it for the benefit of Poland. He made many connections and did a phenomenal job as a diplomat. If you look at President of the USA, Woodrow Wilson's peace plan, known in history as 14 points, number 13 is pretty much Paderewski's job. The point stated, an independent Polish state should be erected, which should include the territories inhabited by indisputably Polish populations, which should be assured a free and secure access to the sea, and whose political and economic independence and territorial integrity should be guaranteed by international covenant. These, however, were only words, and we know in Poland all too well politicians' words mean nothing if no actions are undertaken. However, at the same time, Polish armies, which were parts of different foreign forces, who were on the opposite sides of the military conflict called World War I, just imagine this mess, were doing an excellent job, most notably the so-called legions of Józef Pilsudski. They tried with success to keep as much independence as possible in the bodies of foreign armies, for instance, by insisting on Polish command and Polish ranks, in the order to A, never have Polish troops in one army fight other Polish troops in another army, and B, have the Polish troops cover possibly the largest part of Polish lands to surprise everybody at the end of the war. So this is ours now again, and we've got armed troops here. our troops. What are you going to do about it? And here, the inspired Paderewski 13th point came extremely in handy as it automatically gave legitimacy to the newly reborn country, could be used in diplomatic negotiations, etc. In 1919, the chief of state, Pilsudski, appointed Paderewski as the prime minister and the minister of foreign affairs. All the best, Marcin Mokal. So, thank you, Marcin. I think you should stop the CD only because they literally wouldn't let my video go up
really hoping
because of a
that-
cracked claim.
I'm really hoping
They really
that
cracked
one,
down
I'm really
on that
hoping
stuff.
that one doesn't have a copyright claim.
So, do you want to go back to your show or do you want to do the anonymous American in Europe letter?
Well, we're on the letters, so let's just read the anonymous American in Europe letter. She's right here.
No, he's right. Yeah.
There she is.
We can take turns reading if you want. Dear Lee and Michelle, hello again. I'm back with another multi-draft handwritten epic letter. Again, don't feel obliged to read this on your show, but we're totally going to. But do share excerpts, links as you deem appropriate. As you can see from the postage, I'm back in the U.S. after many months of travel. For your listeners, let's just say I'm in the Northwest. There are many pros and cons on both sides of the Atlantic, but it's an adjustment each time. I'm very much looking forward to your November 11th All Poland show. In recent travels, Poland was one of the safest places I've felt for obvious reasons. I hope you can do a Euro trip in the near future. Some live broadcasts would be amazing. I think it's safe for the most part. Just stay smart and avoid obvious dangers. I'm so glad you posted my links, especially the long version of the EV Torquist, which includes the Scandinavians in Seattle intro. If possible, please add the link to an audio download of The Star, the Cross, and the Crescent, which is available for $3. And I'll put that link in there. It's a bummer that it's no longer available for free.
I've never seen anybody handwrite out
A link. Yeah, or with the video download. Let's see, but I can attest that it's well worth the negligible fee. I wanted to order this for you, but can't do so anonymously and don't know the legality of sending a copy of my download. I wanted to add an addendum to a couple points from my last letter. First, my comments about anti-elitism should in no way be construed as advocating against advanced education or Christians and decent people seeking positions in government, elite institutions. Of course, society receives innumerable dividends from having righteous people in power. As for education, a university degree or public school education may be seen as a waste of time and money in today's politically correct climate of indoctrination, but a quality education should always be encouraged. Notably, the homeschool, especially classical Christian education movement, is having a big impact. In an NPR interview a few years ago, a student at Patrick Henry College was discussing how he and his fellow students hope to make an impact on the broader culture. At the end, the correspondent said to the program host, "If they're all like this, we're in trouble." Commenting on his articulateness, I can say that articulately. Aside from the heroic role of the Bonhoeffers of history, strategically placed Christians are vital as well. Besides the obvious benefit of dealing with bureaucrats and lawmakers or police with a soul, I'm thinking of an international church I attend in Central Europe in the early 2000s that had emerged as the result of diplomats from the American and British embassies who started a prayer group as the communist regime was collapsing.
Go ahead.
The second addendum is vis-a-vis my comments on British political attitudes. Obviously, you have ample contacts from the UK and opinions vary. I'm only relaying my impressions from personal encounters. Speaking of the UK, I watched the September 30th Leave Means Leave rally from Birmingham and was reminded why I believe in Brexit in the first place and why the Chequers plan won't do, which I had begun to think might be a good compromise for the moment with the option of future opt-outs and trade agreements, etc. Brendan Chilton, a major bad dude, put it best in saying that the EU is an inward-looking protectionist club, and instead of fearing retaliatory tactics or even the normal tedium and inconvenience of needing a work or study visa for Europe in the future, the UK should be looking to the world. Of course, Corbyn said precisely the opposite at the recent Labour conference. The Brexiteers want a world where the UK rules the waves and the waves and waves the rules. Chilton called the bluff on the fearmongers. A dangerous and elite cartel of big business, big finance, and big politics are openly and clearly saying to all of us, your vote doesn't count. We're not going to listen to you. Darn them. Let's remove them from power and make sure Brexit means Brexit. I very much needed this ideological boost after my most recent encounter with a Brit on my return trip to the U.S. She, a highly educated Oxbridge type, bemoaned the new hurdles Brexit would bring, such as having to stand in the non-EU passport holders line at the border control or added taxes and red tape when buying property. While I could empathize with the exclusionary feeling at the border check, I thought the property issue could be worked out later and wouldn't affect many people anyway. She said that the Brexit was mainly going to hurt the poor because the rich could deal with added taxes and regulations. But are the poor buying houses in France? I asked. Well, I want to, she said, annoyed. So, I asked, should there be a second referendum? No, there shouldn't have been one in the first place. It should have been decided by Parliament. A lot of people voted leave thinking it was a joke. Not sure that many people voted leave because they thought it was a joke. This led to the sub-discussion on the wisdom of the universal franchise. In the end, feeling outclassed and seriously sleep-deprived, I gave up on any further talking points. All I can do now is pray for the dream of Brexit to manifest and a domino effect that will break the tyranny of the dangerous cartel in UK and Europe. To conclude this letter, before the inevitable recommended resources section, I wanted to briefly touch on the theme of the transatlantic divide, which has probably driven much of my wanderlust. It's a vast subject with many sources of enlightenment. I'd recommend the classic Alexis de Tocqueville's Democracy in America, especially the chapter that lauds the churches and the foundation of American civil society. French public intellectual Bernard Henry Levy, read whatever's at the bottom there, and see if we need to read that. Let's see. No. Oh, okay. Or BHL as he's known, came out with a reboot of de Tocqueville in America, which was ill-received on both sides of the Atlantic. It's my experience that often American or British, or some expat combo, especially English-speaking and especially Christian, often form the hubs of optimistic community to which Europeans flock. Is there something about the Anglo-American Commonwealth culture that adds excitement or fills a void? Notably, there's also an Irish pub in nearly every German or Central Eastern European city, usually run by some Brit expat or maybe even an authentic Irish bloke, which is a cultural institution. I'm tempted to give some more examples, but I'm beginning to talk rubbish as if I were hanging out in said Irish pub. With that, I am at the end of this letter expecting one final, seemingly but not entirely random, recommend for the Resistance Chicks faithful. Peter Kreft on Alexander Solzhenitsyn's 1978 commencement address at Harvard, A World Split Apart, available on YouTube. Thanks for your show. God bless Jane, the anonymous American in Europe, currently back in the USA. She said she's included a couple of pictures from Free Opinion 1 in Germany, a small city in the eastern part. I was surprised this would even be permitted. Feel free to share these on the show or better images available online, but didn't mention you heard it. Oh, don't mention you heard about it from me. Totally just did. So the Luther Rose, it says copies of a Free Opinion Zone in Germany. And then it says the Luther Rose is from the Reformation shop in Germany. Thought it might be interesting.
Oh, I love it.
And then she says, enjoy the goodies. Waitrose is a high-end grocery store in the UK alongside M&S, which is first and foremost a department store.
Stem ginger crumbly fudge. Ginger fudge.
Crumbly fudge. Ritter Sport caramel mousse. That looks really yummy. I haven't seen any of the comments.
Ginger fudge. Ginger fudge. We're going to try the ginger fudge on air because that sounds really...
Ginger fudge?
Yeah.
I only ate a little bite of it.
It's like a candy.
It is like a candy. It's very gingery.
But ginger's really good for you. So it's like...
It is. I've never had anything like this before.
All butter fudge with pieces of crystallized stem ginger.
Wow. That's actually
it's made
really good.
in a big copper pan. That is really good. Thank you, Jane.
All right, so she says a few words about Idaho. In Europe, people often confuse it with Iowa or Ohio. Then I set them straight. Yellowstone, potatoes, Canada, etc. I'm not sure what most people around the country think of us, as it's a vague western mountain state. Many young people flee at the first chance without looking back. At least it used to be the case, especially to the West Coast cities, especially Seattle or Portland. I recently came back to find that it's growing massively with an influx from all of the country. Seriously, I see license plates from everywhere, but the biggest influx is from the West Coast, fleeing the high cost living, who are rapidly changing
The
the demographics. So maybe ID will soon be the swing state, like Nevada or New Mexico. This is the main part I didn't want to reveal on the show. I'm sorry, and I totally just did.
Yeah.
Forgive me. By the way, I've been through Ohio by car, and most memorable were the Amish buggies on the highway.
Yep.
Unfortunately, unless there's a big "don't read this on air,"
Yeah.
it might get read on air, guys. We do the very best that we can to try to retain your anonymity, guys. And if we are not able to do that, I sincerely apologize.
They're going to find her.
Yeah, the Jane, the anonymous
They're going to find her.
American in Europe.
Who likes ginger candies. All right. Moving on now to the 100 years after World War I. And I feel like it's important to kind of go over a little bit of what started World War I. Now, to this day, historians are still going over and over and over what really started World War I. If you know any bit of history at all, everyone says, yeah, there was the assassination. That assassination of that one guy. Obviously, millions of people are not dead because of the assassination of the Austrian-Hungarian. Stop playing. Please stop playing.
Breathe.
Right. Stop. Out of the way. Thank you. The Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Okay?
I love it when I hear from people that say, I don't really watch your show, I just listen to it. They have no idea what's happening. You're just randomly getting upset.
So I am going to give you kind of the cliff notes, so you kind of get an overview of what's going to happen. What happened
in this movie of World War I that we're about to play for you.
So it kind of gives you an idea of why people died, why people thought they were dying, why they thought they were fighting. World War I began in 1914 after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. It lasted until 11/11/1918. During this conflict, you had on one side the people occupying Poland. Go figure. Germany, Austria-Hungary, which was one group, and let's see, Bulgaria and the Ottoman Empire, the Central Powers, technically fought against Great Britain, France, Russia, Italy, Romania, Japan, and later the United States, the Allied powers. World War I took battle to the next extreme. When we entered in 1917, due to actually a cable that was sent because the German Kaiser wanted to expand his war, he had bigger vision. He wanted Mexico to invade the United States. Great Britain intercepted this cable. Woodrow Wilson took that to Congress to declare war on the powers, the Central Powers. But when we came in 1917, our guys weren't ready.
Right.
Our guys weren't ready for machine guns. A lot of lives could have been saved had we been ready. I guess in World War I, we never produced a tank. And I think that we obviously went overboard World War II. Right. I mean, like, everything was for the war effort.
We won't be caught off again.
So, what a machine gun can do and what tanks can do, that's why so many lives were lost. Right. It is just a massacre.
Well, we go back to
such violence.
Let's say like something like a civil war or something like that, where you have weapons and you have guns, but you still have bayonets because you have the one shot. You know,
I mean, even cannons, for goodness sake, are one big ball, right. Baby. You know, it's just a bigger one.
Right.
So, if we're going back to war, I don't know. I would rather go back to a war, a day without machine guns, right. For sure. So, but here's the thing. Tensions in Europe were high. Obviously, Poland was occupied.
Eric reminds me that Gatling guns were in full effect during the Civil War.
Okay. Well, You're right about that. But the machine guns we weren't ready for.
Right.
We weren't ready for tanks. We created the Wright brothers invented the airplanes, but we didn't have, airplanes. So you had a lot of tensions happening in Europe, especially in the Balkan region of East Europe, for years before World War I broke out. This was a planned thing. This was Germany. I go with the view that Germany had been planning this for a long time. They weren't happy with their defeat in World War I, and so they came back even stronger under Hitler in World War II. But you see that the hunger and the voracious appetite for murder,
right,
has always been in. And I'm not saying the German people, because the German people actually revolted against this war, revolted against their Kaiser,
right.
But one leader can send one man can send a whole people, a whole continent into massacring each other. Absolutely insane. So you had the assassination, and Hungary, Austria wanted to put Serbia in their place. It was a Bosnian Serbian dude who supposedly was angry at the Archduke. He assassinated him. Germany kind of pushed Austria-Hungary to go after Serbia, but Serbia had an alliance with Russia. Germany knew that when they encouraged Austria-Hungary to try to retaliate for this assassination, and by the way, leadership they were always being assassinated in Europe, and so this wasn't like a huge new thing, not something that you would domino a world war over. The world war was not over this assassination of this Archduke. Okay? This was a power-hungry people, and it was also a people who wanted to defend themselves. All right? So you have Russia coming in to defend Serbia. Well, Russia is also aligned with France at the time. So Germany up and says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to invade France.
Right.
They go through neutral Belgium, kill a bunch of people along the way. What is France supposed to do? So France fights. What gets Great Britain in? And then the United States gets pulled in because Germany wants the United States pulled in. I half wonder if they didn't want the cable to be intercepted that he had sent to Mexico, asking Mexico to randomly invade the United States, on his behalf, so we can literally destroy all of humanity across the globe. I mean, seriously.
Well, it's more than that, actually. And it really does boil down to all wars are bankers' wars.
Absolutely.
These wars were planned strategically. And so
Right.
you think that Hitler was just some crazed man, and he started this whole thing, and it's all based on him.
Right.
And it really wasn't. It had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with money and finances, power and control, and the people that were funding both sides.
Exactly. So that's kind of the overview of World War I.
Rabaza says men lived in trenches for years.
And it should never have happened.
Yeah.
No one person assassinating an Archduke should have all these countries.
Worldwide war ramifications.
So obviously when you look at it, you're like, people still aren't fighting over the Archduke.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not about the Archduke. It's about German invasion of the entire continent, wanting to take over all of Europe.
Right.
It is about Germany. It is Germany's fault. Now, I'm not saying the German people's fault, because your leadership led you this way. Kaiser Wilhelm. All right? This guy was just a nasty dude. I'm not even kidding you. He was a nasty dude. And I want to go over a little bit of that while I'm here talking about it. I'm going to have to, where am I? All right. Learning some lessons. Today is not only Veterans Day, it is also the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I, when the armistice went into effect exactly a century ago. At what time? 11 a.m. on 11/11. I want to play for you an audio clip. If I have it here somewhere. Sorry if I gotta find my audio clip. It's
You see how
probably
much
not
work
here.
Leah puts into this for you guys.
You can. That's a nice way to put everything. Look at the niceness that she put into this.
Stuart the Brit says the war was started by generals sitting in London and never went to war themselves. And that's what we see over and over again. We see these people that are not willing to put their own lives on the line, but they're willing to send the young people of their country to war.
Yeah. I think there's an audio clip. I want to find it. I have it here somewhere. I think I tweeted it out. Let me find my Twitter. It's the end of World War I, and they have a restored audio
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
of literally you hear the fighting, and then suddenly you don't hear it anymore. It just stops. And I know that I shared that audio clip. It was so good. It was just
Maybe
really
they took it
powerful.
off.
No,
Did they tell you what happens when
no.
they take
I
your
would
tweet
have.
away?
No. I mean, I guess I forgot to retweet it. I must have. Where did it go? I have all these links.
Brit Plaza says World War I was royal families fighting and arguing between themselves and ordered armies into battle.
Is this? That's the art. Well, this is kind of cool. I guess I can play this while I keep looking around. So what they did on these beaches are sand portraits of fallen soldiers from World War I that have been carved into the beaches for Armistice Day.
Yay.
Yeah, and I thought that this would be so cool to show you.
Wilfred swam on this beach the day before he left for France the second time, and on that occasion he didn't return. And he was killed actually 7 days before Armistice.
Wow.
And his mother received a telegram of his death on Armistice Day itself, as the bells were ringing around Shrewsbury, tragically. So it's wonderful to put an image
I don't know
of
if you guys
here on
can
the
see it. I
screen
think they
again.
can see it.
And we tried to find connections in each of the beaches. We've done this at 32 beaches around the country, well, about 30. And we try to find connections, stories like that bring it home.
And then
that
as
you
the
can
ocean
talk
is going to
about.
come and like
Today,
take them back
you
into the
have
ocean.
there's
That's
a
why.
lot of divisions and polarity around the world. And in many ways, people are warning that we are slowly moving back towards war. There are a lot of loud people out there who are making a lot of noise like that. And it's wonderful to be able to think about someone who lived through the reality of a war and wrote so extraordinarily about it and gave that information to us as a blessing, as a warning, really.
Yeah, as a warning. I love that. You don't want people to die. I mean,
Right.
it's I think it was RT that now if I have it, it would have been the RT tweet that I put out with the audio clip. Let me see if I can find it. Audio end of World War One. Because it was so cool.
Stuart the Brit says all those men and women believed in their leaders, yet they were sent to death by the 100,000 Britain's finest people.
Yeah. Yeah, these are really good people. Here we go.
Did you find it?
I had to Google it.
Oh, it came up on Google.
Yeah. Well, I think they're happy to get things like this out. Historians are so excited. And of course, it's going to be a new exhibit
At the
They're
Smithsonian.
totally going to play it. So they do a time lapse. I saw the one with the time lapse, by the way. You can listen while I bring it up.
That might be it.
I want you to see it at the time lapse, though.
That might be it right there. No?
That was just a picture. Experts used a... It was really cool because it showed the times that passed. Let's here we go. Okay, so here's the time. 10:58, 58. All the way up to exactly 11. And just done. Just silent. 11 a.m. It's done.
Amazing.
Ah, somebody got last one. Yeah, I just thought that was pretty cool.
Scotty Good says, I love images of World War I. I wish they would do more documentaries and stuff because they mostly do World War II.
World War I Museum, it's actually in Kansas City, Missouri, commemorates the human cost. 7,200 deaths a day. 300 an hour, 5 a minute.
Belinda says the UK remembered all the war horses and animals today as well. Britt Baza says over 1 million horses were killed in the Battle of World War I.
Yeah, it was not awesome. I'm not sure if I want to go there yet or not. Because there's First World War centenary remembering the Allies animal helpers. Like you guys just said, this one is hard for me to even talk about, but there were messengers, spies, and sentinels. They led cavalry charges, carried supplies to the front, and died by the millions.
Wow.
In World War I, the millions. Horses, mules, dogs, pigeons, even a balloon. All were vital and for decades overlooked part of the Allied war machine. Researchers have been hard-pressed to find official accounts of the services rendered by animals. Today they are emerging as unsung heroes of the Great War. France recently decided to recognize their role in the war. And in 2004, Britain installed a huge memorial to the vital contribution of animals on the edge of London's Hyde Park. What they did, an estimated 10 million horses and mules, 100,000 dogs, 200,000 pigeons were enrolled in the war effort. French historian specializing in the response of animals to chaos, fear, and smells of death and the mission that man thrust upon them. This man, Edric Barate, does an expose.
Edward says dogs were used a lot also.
Yeah, 100,000 it said. World War I marked the start of the industrial warfare with tanks, trucks, aircraft, and machine guns in action, but the growing sophistication of instruments of death couldn't match the dog tasked with finding the wounded, the horses and mules hauling munitions and food, or the pigeons serving as telecommunications and operators, or even eyes carrying pigeongrams or tiny cameras to record German positions. They were quasi-combatants. Feathered heroes, Cher Ami, our dear friend, the carrier pigeon who wouldn't quit, lived up to her name, saving the lives of 194 American troops of the Lost Battalion of the 77th Infantry Division. Isolated behind enemy lines during the 1918 Meuse-Argonne offensive in eastern France, about 550 men had held their ground against a far larger German force for days before coming under fire from American troops, unaware the trapped soldiers were the enemy. On October 4th, Major Charles Whittlesey sent Cher Ami into the skies with a final message giving the U.S. battalion's location, followed by a plea, "For heaven's sake, stop it." Cher Ami lost an eye and a leg from German gunfire but kept flying. Around 25 miles in a half an hour, according to the United States World War I Centennial Commission, survivors of the last battalion returned to American lines 4 days later. Another carrier pigeon named Valiant, assigned to the French military, also performed extraordinary feats during the war. On June 4th, 1916, he was released into the sky with a desperate message: "He's my last pigeon."
Aww.
French commander Sylvain Eugene Reynal, encircled by Germans at the Fort de Vaux near Verdun, was counting on Valiant to save his men. The feisty bird flew through toxic gas and smoke, reaching the Verdun pigeon loft choked by fumes, with no help arriving despite Valiant's courageous effort. Reynal and his men surrendered 3 days later, but they were both given the France's War Cross. Round 'em up, horses! Are ancient warriors, but most of those conscripted during World War I weren't war ready. They died by the millions from disease, exhaustion, and enemy fire, forcing the French and British armies to turn to America to renew their supply. The veritable industry developed with more than 500,000 horses and mules shipped by boat to Europe in the fall of 1917. So important was the commerce that the Santa Fe Railroad named a station Drag after the British colonel, the commander of the British Remount Commission in Lathrop, Missouri, a major stockyard for the future beasts of war. So the war business in horses and mules is good. You even had exotic animals that were called a baboon named Jackie, who served in the 1st South African Infantry Brigade in this British-occupied Egypt and later in the trenches in France and Belgium. His acute hearing and keen eyesight helped warn soldiers of enemy movement or possible attacks, and he would screech and tug on their clothing. Jackie was wounded at Flanders Field when the South African Brigade came under heavy shelling, and his leg had to be amputated. He lapped up the chloroform as if it were whiskey. Dogs of war, man's best friend, helped soldiers survive. Dogs served firstly as spotters of wounded, learning to identify ally from enemy. They also served as sentinels, messengers, transporters, and chasers of rats, a bane of trenches with lice and fleas. Less official was the soldiers, but crucial to the soldiers' morale, the role of dogs and other creatures in the trenches. Mascots,
Yeah.
I know dogs. I know that just those happy smiles wagging their tail in the midst of darkness and such great doom. And while we're talking about, I'm going to pull this way, if you wouldn't mind, kind of kick it. While we're talking about darkness and gloom, there's some letters here that I want to read. 100 years later, their words could still pierce heart. Fighters riding home from opposing front lines of World War I, a Chinese laborer marveling at the war's end, a woman dreaming of reuniting with her soldier's love. At a Paris ceremony Sunday marking the centennial of the armistice ending the First Global War, 8 teenagers born in the 21st century read from these letters. Here are some excerpts. My darling parents, today has been perfectly wonderful. This is from a British officer, Charles Neville. We got news of the armistice at 9:30 this morning. I got 10 minutes to sort out a detachment for a grand parade in the square of Mons. So I got everybody I could lay hands on to scrub the mud off. The streets were packed with wildly cheering civilians, chucking flowers at us and carrying on like only a foreigner can. All the street and the square was a blaze of color. Mostly, of course, the Belgian colors red, yellow, and black. Union Jacks, French flags, American flags, and every conceivable flag of the Allies. Michelle, you're going to read from the German foot soldier.
The war is over, and in an hour we will leave. We will never have to come back here. A light fog curls over the ground. We can clearly see the line of pits and trenches. These elements of a frightening world and an unforgiving life. In an hour's time, everything will have disappeared, and disappeared to the point that one might believe it never existed. How can we comprehend this? And we who are here, who should laugh and cry out for joy, feel a heaviness in our stomachs.
This is a Chinese laborer working in a depot in the Normandy city of Rouen. Tens of thousands of Chinese laborers were brought to the support of the war. The sirens of factories seemed to be sounding, and cries of joyful noise ring out. The end of the war was announced. At 11 a.m., arms and work stopped everywhere. I wanted to see... I was going with the Chinese.
It was close. It was really close.
But I was trying. I wanted to see for myself how the French celebrated the armistice in the city. It was already a sea of people, men and young women and old, soldiers and civilians. People of all skin colors marched together in hand, singing and cheering. American soldier here.
Captain Charles Normington. In the parade were hundreds of thousands of soldiers from the U.S., England, Canada, France, Australia, Italy, and the colonies. Each soldier had his arms full of French girls, some crying, others laughing. Each girl had to kiss every soldier before she would let him pass. There is nowhere on earth I would rather be today than just where I am. I only hope the soldiers who died for this cause are looking down upon the world today. The whole world owes this moment of real joy to the heroes who are not here, but to help enjoy it.
This is from a French woman, Denise Bruller, to a letter to address to her fiancé, Pierre Fort. My Pierre, my darling. Pierre, thank you. As I write to you, in your distant Aliston forest, you are learning the incredible news. Hear the bells ring out wildly. I am sick with happiness. I cannot write. I am sobbing desperately with joy. I can never express to you the feeling of delirious joy. On this first day of the armistice, the upheaval in the very depths of my being, and this incredible thought that not one more man will fall, that the immense length of the front is silent. Nothing but silence. Great tears fall as I think of it all over.
Can I just... Don't get mad at me again. And these letters are great, and I'm glad that we're doing this. But at the same
You're
time...
totally going to down my letters.
Can't help it. We know the history. We know what comes. These people are so excited. War is so awful. It's so gruesome. It's so horrific. And the excitement here is tangibly felt. 100 years later, we can feel it. And I guess I have a righteous anger at wars. They say all wars are bankers' wars. Well, I don't believe that the Revolutionary War was. Okay, it just wasn't. It literally was a war for independence. Okay, a war like that has a righteous feeling when it's finished. And when I read these, as much as I'm excited to hear it, and it is wonderful to read it, my heart breaks because it didn't last and they didn't get to hold on to it, and it had just happened. Millions of people lost their lives. Millions of animals lost their lives. We're just reading about today.
And why?
And why? What was the purpose? What was behind it? And it was so short-lived before these families had to give up more.
Well, here's the thing. What you have is you have the very next generation dying.
Yeah.
You have the very next generation dying. And actually with that, I find it I found this incredibly interesting that J.R.R. Tolkien, he did base his books on World War I. Now, some people thought it was later on Hitler, and he specifically said, no, this is not World War II. Okay. Now, his generation, he was, I think in 1917, he was like 22 years old. His generation was a generation of World War I.
Right.
His sons were the generation of World War II. And I wanted to kind of make that distinction, to talk about how, you know, one of our greatest beloved stories and movies and books that we've read were kind of based on this horrificness. And I want to play for you kind of the feelings that it gave to Tolkien, to give you an example of what it gave to everyone around.
In The Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien created an epic medieval saga
with a castle in
mythical world of Middle-earth, populated by
it
orcs, wizards, hobbits, elves, and most importantly of all, of course, dwarves. You might well ask, what has that got to do with World War I? The Lord of the Rings wasn't even published until 1954. Well, all great stories have to start somewhere. John Ronald Reuel Tolkien was 22 and studying English language and literature at Oxford University when World War I broke out. After finishing his degree, he joined the Lancashire Fusiliers, and by July 1916, he was at the front line on the Somme.
Wow.
Tolkien saw firsthand the horrors of trench warfare, which by the end of the war had killed all but one of his closest friends. Tolkien was one of the lucky ones. He contracted trench fever, and by November was back in a British hospital. It was during this time in hospital that Tolkien started to formulate the fantasy world of Middle-earth. It's clear that Tolkien's wartime experiences influenced his creation, and with a little digging we can uncover the parallels between the battle for Middle-earth and the battle for Europe.
So there's a second video here with this woman. Where is she?
Stuart the Brit says, I often tell young people that myself and they should thank their lucky stars that we never had to go to war, as so many of our forefathers had.
What do you make of the supposition that, in fact, Lord of the Rings is simply an allegorical story of World War I?
Tolkien himself was notoriously not very happy with these kinds of interpretations.
He didn't want it
it's
to
a
be
very
an allegory.
simplistic thing to just see it as an allegory of one particular moment. A work like The Lord of the Rings is very complex, it's very multi-layered, and it's, we can't really claim that there's one single source that kind of brought it to life. Tolkien was quite reluctant usually to talk about sources, but he did talk about the Great War. He talked about the landscapes of the Somme that he remembered, and he also talked about Sam Gamgee as an expression of the English soldier, especially the privates and the batmen. This kind of resilience, this endurance, this courage, which actually he says he kind of recognized as superior to himself.
I've heard people say that, in fact, forget the First World War, Lord of the Rings is about the rise of Hitler.
There are these theories out there.
Yeah. What's your take on it?
Tolkien refuted the allegory of the Second World War. There were a lot of kind of commentaries about the ring as the atomic bomb, and he was saying, no, that's got nothing to do with it. Actually, that's the point where he says it actually has more to do with the First World War, and I think he was trying to make that distinction. But he did take part in the Second World War. He didn't kind of see active service, but he served as an air warden. But what is important, I think, here is that his two sons saw active service, and he was very, very worried for them, of course, naturally. And we see some elements of that in The Lord of the Rings with the older characters who see their sons fighting. In a way, this is Tolkien, the veteran of the Great War, facing yet another one. The First War was the war to end all wars.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to put that out there to kind of give you the...
Well, I think maybe for younger people that watch our show, or anybody that's seen The Lord of the Rings, to give you a grasp for the horrors of war and the depth that is felt by those fighting it, those at home, to kind of put it on a little bit of a more superficial level, but it helps to give you an understanding to know that story was based on his experiences in real life.
Yeah, I wanted to show you this. This is the wired soldiers at St. John's Churchyard in Slimbridge. They're wired, so you can kind of see through them, but they look like they're there. They kind of look like ghosts almost.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
And I found that was a beautiful kind of rendition there.
Kelly says, Michelle, you are so right. My side was way back battle-wise, but my husband Eric's family was so much more recent. And I think all of us have family members. I think we'd be hard-pressed to find anybody that doesn't have family that fought in those wars.
Right.
Everyone was touched by it. It touched everyone worldwide.
Yeah, it really did. It really absolutely did. And we're going to kind of sum this up, but
I do have those couple videos from Barry.
Yeah, I know you do. So, Trump is at the First World War centenary. Is there anything better to celebrate than the end of war? That's what Trump said. He was traveling with other world leaders. Trump pays tribute to great warriors who fell in First World War at rain-lashed Armistice Cemetery. I can't say it right. Let's see.
We have a number of amazing veterans with us today, including 6 veterans of World War II. James Blaine. James, where's James? James, thank you. Thank you, James. Frank DeVita. Thank you, Frank. Thank you very much. You look so comfortable up there under shelter as we're getting drenched. You're very smart people. Pete Dupre. Pete, thank you very much.
President doesn't get an umbrella.
Gregory Melican.
Can stand it.
Thank you, Gregory. Stephen Meldikoff. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. And Jay Trimmer. Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Thank you. You look like you're in really good shape, all of you. I hope I look like that someday. You look great.
You look great. Nothing like bringing the Trump to.
Britt Baza says, my nan was bombed out in Tottenham, London, 3 times in the 1940s in 3 months and had a nervous breakdown.
Wow.
She also had a 2-year-old son, my uncle, at the time. Wow.
New Zealand and Australia were the first to remember the millions of men and women who fell in service of the empire between 1914 and 1919 and 1939-1945. This morning, when services and parades in Sydney, Wellington, Christchurch, and other cities commemorated the fall with the symbol of the poppy. This is at Sydney Opera House, with the poppy being displayed there. Let's see, there were poppy leaves. Obviously, the young Prince Harry there. Faraj and Maremmer say, embracing our history and nation will bring us back the society we once had. He told that to Breitbart News today. He said, asked by Mr. Bannon if he thought the people of that time were fundamentally different to people now, Faraj noted that the values that people had back then in many ways made them better people than they are today. They had a quite strong fundamental Christian belief that went right through society. They believed in country, they believed in family, and they were prepared to make sacrifices to defend the nation and to defend their people. And I'm not quite sure 100 years on that we're the same society, sadly. However, Mr. Faraj pointed to the sea change that began in 2016 when the nation state had come back. It was a year people said, we are not prepared to live with globalism, with liberalism, with being embarrassed about our culture, our heritage, of who we are as a people, pointing to Brexit and Trump victories, as well as gains for populist parties in Austria and Czech Republic. Mr. Faraj says there is definitely a reawakening of the concept of a nation. If you believe in a nation, then you believe in belonging to something. I do think we're headed back in the right direction. And you notice these crosses here, these headstones of crosses, and I think that if I'm going to end on something, and we're going to play the videos here from Britt about one of the last hangers, and we'll end with the song there. As I said before, Michelle wasn't here. How do wars continue on? Usually wars are fought over something. Mm-hmm. But somebody has to fund them, and that's why Michelle, mentioned all wars are bankers' wars. There are righteous wars. There's a song say, "What is war? What is it good for?" Well, if somebody's coming to attack you, then you fight back. Yeah. You defend your castle. You defend your home. Sure. A lot of wars, Napoleon went and tried to take over. You fighting. You've got throughout history. You have great battles. Rome conquered the world through war and battle and things like that. I personally don't believe in wars and battles to go and conquer things, but if God leads you to, like the Israelites, there's a thing there. I don't believe God's going to be leading anybody to conquer anything for now. I think that's kind of Old Testament stuff. Yeah, Old Testament stuff. He's not leading anybody right now to go conquer. World War I began in 1914, which I find incredibly coincidental to the fact that we had a patsy president in 1913 who created this magic machine called the Federal Reserve. And the world, even then, was the world there was tied to gold and silver at that point. And what happened with Woodrow Wilson is the bankers uncoupled instantly from gold, from the value. For 200 years, there was no such thing as inflation. If you put $1 away in 1713, it was worth the same amount in 1913. Imagine.
Oh, but Leah, inflation is very real.
From the time I'm born to now, if I put $1 away, it's not worth the same amount. And so you have this ability to to print these fake dollars, and that's how we have bigger and bigger machineries and big machines that can blow everybody to smithereens in a blink of an eye, and now we have this wars and this arm race, and you wouldn't see it. We're anti-war, okay? I believe in defending yourselves, but the reason you have a World War I and a World War II and a Korean War and a Vietnam War in 7 countries in 5 years is because of the uncoupling of the dollar from gold and from. Go ahead.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head, though. For those of you that are still having a hard time grasping this, we're looking at December 23rd, the very end of 1913. It might as well be 1914.
Mm-hmm.
Very quick and very swiftly that they were able to get the war machine up and running. Why and how? Because they had already had it planned. In order to start the Federal Reserve, they had to lay the foundation. We've got the Creature from Jekyll Island. We know that they had these meetings. They laid it all out very strategically. So we see in 1914, they implemented the first wave of what was going to be the most instrumental piece in their puzzle of world economic and monetary dominance.
Globalism.
Exactly. Now, they had 4 years of that. Then they had to give people a rest. They gave them a break. They let it end. Did somebody win specifically? Yes. Did they let that happen? Yes. So they give people a bit of a reprieve. Then they implement the Great Depression that happened in the United States in 1928.
And the crazy thing is these people, that goes down from generation to generation. You've got Standard Oil, John D. Rockefeller, who is helping in World War II, the Nazis, helping Hitler, helping I.G. Farben. You've got Ford helping the Nazis. So who we end up going and fighting anyways. And I'm not going to say that World War I necessarily was the American bankers. It very well could have been. I think that you have the American bankers definitely with an eye in the early 1900s of a globalism, of a globalist. You have to hand it to them. They do have a vision, just like Christians had a vision for democracy and our republic and righteousness and holiness. You also had evil people with a vision. Right. And I wanted to bring it back to, why do we bring it back to gold and silver? Because in the past 100 years, world has never been like it's been. And a lot of Christians want to say, well, okay, end of the world, Jesus coming back. I want to say, let's just fix it. And I see a fixing of this. I see God coming back, and I want to encourage people to get back into the Word of God. And you see, you're going to get back into the Word of God when you embrace families. Why? In Hungary, what do we see? We see that abortions have already dropped by 1/3 by encouraging families without actually banning or making any laws against abortion.
And we see that when you talk about contraceptives, they won't let Christian abstinence programs into schools. You can send abstinent programs, but not Christian ones.
Yeah, and here's the thing. What we want to encourage is families. When you don't have to necessarily say don't have an abortion, but you can say encourage a family, encourage love, encourage children. Instead of telling people what not to do, what Christianity has always done is encourage people what to do, how to love your neighbor.
Right.
If you're going to love your neighbor, guess what? You're not going to invade their country and blow them to bits.
Right.
So Germany, obviously, the Kaiser left off Christianity totally there. In the violence that was in the German Kaiser there was so horrendous. He totally left off Christianity.
Patriot Gallery.
I just want to give you a ribbon around this package you just laid out about the Federal Reserve, Wilson, the bankers, Creatures, General Isle. If you go back to our Revolutionary War, it was communication. It was preachers preaching the Word of God in the pulpit.
Yeah.
Everybody got their communication through pubs and through the church. And they communicated the Word of God, and it spread throughout the churches. And the power of God was lit. There was a light of, like lighting a match. It started a fire. The fire of Christianity went everywhere. And the Revolutionary War was born from communication. Now, these men knew about this communication, so they had through Morgan I think it was Morgan who had the newspaper, and he lied about a bank and started to run in like 1913 to 1914, and they started using newspapers to lie to people. And communication is a huge, big business, And so when you're watching communication, you have to know where these people are coming from. And when you see all the censorship, every fascist, every communist, every socialist, every China, wherever it is, the first thing they do is shut down speech and communication of one person to another person. And so you have to get your information from them. Right. And even FDR put in a law that the FCC had a law that if you wanted a license to the radio came out, you had to take everything through him, and you couldn't say anything bad about him. That was written in the law. You couldn't say bad about the president. And so FDR got two. He was elected twice, I think, even maybe 3 terms. Right. Because nobody could say anything bad about him. You couldn't be on radio. You couldn't have a newspaper. Right. So you got to watch this. When this censorship comes, somebody's coming at you with a gun, with a knife to enslave you. That's right. Absolutely. That's what Google and all the censorship Twitter is trying to do. They're trying to enslave you. Right.
So I want to read this quote here from the German Kaiser, who said, should you encounter the enemy, he will be defeated. No quarter will be given. Prisoners will not be taken. Whoever falls into your hands is forfeited. Just as 1,000 years ago, the Huns under King Attila made a name for themselves, one that even today makes them seem mighty in history and legend. May the name German be affirmed by you. And you see definitely walking away from Christianity, from civility, from kindness, from obviously this isn't an annihilation. This is a German supremacy mindset. This is just evil, plain satanic evil. And we see the rise of Christianity in Poland, and they are holding the line. We see the rise of Christianity in Hungary. They're holding the line. They're holding their borders. They're going back. They're realizing their Christian roots. Salvini is bringing up Christianity and family. And Nigel Farage, for all intents and purposes, is saying what we need to be saying is these Christian values of loving your neighbor, doing good to those who despitefully use you and persecute you, tending to the poor, tending to the needy, taking care of the fatherless, taking care of the widow. These are Western civilized principles. And what happened to this German Kaiser is he decided to go Neanderthal, basically back to Attila the Hun. Yeah. This is medieval, okay? This is medieval practices. This is archaic practices. This is Dark Ages practices. This is just mentality of just kill and destroy and Jews in gas chambers. And so Americans had to fight this evil. But you've got to fight with the power of God. Mom is back.
I just forgot one thing. Trump just kicked it out of here. The law that you can't say anything political in the churches. That's been on the books since Johnson. And that's how come we can't get set free. Now the internet started. We're free. Don't ever let the government make a law where you can't say something.
Right, exactly. You've got to be able to speak. So we're going to go and let Britton take us out today. Go ahead and play a little bit of history here from the Hanger. The Chore. I think that's not the one I wanted you to play.
Oh. Do you want me to play the other one while you find it?
No, it's the last one in the...
Let's see.
Messages. At least it was in my messages. He might have just sent it to me.
Thank you, Barry, for all the links that you send us. I think you try to send us each the same ones.
Mm-hmm.
But just in case.
Yeah. Let's see. I just thought it was interesting history.
It's the bottom.
Okay, so... Was it this one? That one? Did you click on that one? Is that the one you clicked on? That's the one I wanted you to click on.
Okay, I did this one.
No, yeah, go down. That's the one I wanted you to play.
Okay.
Kind of a little bit of interesting history I wanted to kind
of... At some historic airfields, man's conquest of the air continues. At some, the past has been erased. One historic airfield was forgotten, left to sleep.
Wow.
A place where time has stood still. A Great War aerodrome, untouched since 1919. the stories of the men who served here waiting to be told. Imagine a place where men lived and died, where service and sacrifice were made and then forgotten. Imagine a place so complete and authentic you can just feel the past. "90 years ago, conflict gave way to the stillness of peacetime, the roar of engines to the call of birds, military might to the forces of nature. Now, history is being reborn. Those lost stories told, the sacrifice commemorated. Stowe-Marie's aerodrome is unique, a place of heritage like no other. It is the only intact Great War aerodrome. A program of restoration and preservation is being undertaken by a dedicated team of historians, aviators, and military experts to preserve this special place for future generations. A living memorial to those who gave their lives for king and country.
Wow.
Yeah, I just thought that was neat.
Really awesome.
These are some of the commemorations that happened today in London. And remember today, there's the Queen with her plentiful poppies. There's Edinburgh. Yeah. Belfast. Cardiff. Paris, there's Trump with Merkel. London.
Barry says that it's an airfield a couple of miles from where he's at in Essex.
Unfortunately, the warmongers have gone to other places to do their battles. And while we remember them, these people, there's people dying all over the place right now. There's people dying in Libya, Syria.
It's amazing how whoever did this transposed it into color to give you
Peter Jackson
a feel.
You know, people had done a lot of oral histories with veterans before they died, you know, and I was so grateful that happened. And obviously there's this incredible archive of film. And the way that we restored the film, the restoration, the one thing the restoration did
is it just brought their faces to life. You know, the faces of these people suddenly, where you don't really notice them when they're all sped up jerky, suddenly they kind of just come into a focus
They
almost.
slow the video down.
And in that one, seeing their faces, I just thought, well, we can't have any sound other than the voices of the guys that were there. I mean, the restoration led me to suddenly understand what this film has to be. And I just thought, well, let's make a movie with the images, you know, restored images, that is basically the veterans telling their own story.
We were in conditions that isolated us completely from civilization. We got so degenerate, so isolated.
You could sympathise with how a rabbit must feel, because we were hunted by mankind, just the same as a rabbit.
You knew your lives were in one another's hands, and it united you very closely, and you didn't let anything interfere with that.
You lived like tramps. You didn't polish any buttons. You wore any uniform bits that you liked, and nobody worried. All they were concerned with was that you were fit to fight.
If nothing's happened, you chat about life, where he came from, where you came from. Everything was friendly. There was a terrific lot of kindness in the way to each person. When the war was not very active, it was really rather fun to be in the front line. It was not very dangerous, a sort of out-of-door camping holiday with the boys, with a slight spice of danger to make it interesting.
Very interesting.
That is really interesting.
Okay, so Michelle,
on that note, before we, I actually do. That kind of made me think, you know, what we're going through is hard to compare to something like that, because we had everybody from almost all nations, westernized nations anyway, sacrificing their lives. I mean, can you imagine? I'm a female. That would not even have applied to me unless I chose to go in as a nurse, or I think we had the farmer girls, you know, but even that's not like war. That's not sacrificing your life. But everybody was affected because they lost somebody that was gone. You know, Barry had said they lived in these trenches sometimes for years at a time. So it's hard for us in modern societies to wrap our brains around a worldwide upheaval where no one feels right all the time, every day. Where you wake up every day and you do the things that you have to do, and you do the tasks that are set before you, and in the back of your mind you're thinking, how did we get here? This war, you know, what is it for? You don't even really know. Even if you're on the battlefield, you have some sort of quasi idea of what you're fighting for, but still, like they said, you know, in the times of where there weren't like exciting battles, it was just kind of like glorified camping. Why are we doing this? What is the purpose? What is behind this? And I think that we need to recognize that we are fighting a war right now. And some people don't take it as seriously as they should. But the tactics have just gotten a little bit more nefarious. They're still reducing our population through abortion, contraceptives, chemicals in the food, diminishing the quality of life. Do you guys know that when you bring up statistics for people in, I would say probably the UK or the United States, that happiness, just regular happiness, not joy, not my life is like amazing, I'm a rock star, just everyday happiness that we all should have, has gone down and plummeted since the Industrial Revolution, since all of these freedoms that we want. We want to be free to make love and not war. We want to be free to have our LGBT, you know, whatever. We want our big social programs. We want big government. We want big technology. We want washing machines. We want refrigerators. We don't want to be tied to the farm. If you're a woman, I don't want to be tied to a family or to my kids. I want to be able to cart them off to daycare. I want. And you get it. And we've gotten it. And with all of these things that we wanted, all of these achievements that for the past thousands of years, we in our mighty arrogance look back and say, look what we have that you did not have. And yet we are less happy now as societies worldwide than ever before. And I hear the argument often, you know, would you want to go back to the hardness of, you know, the starving farms that I hear about in the late 1800s in the UK? That's not what I'm talking about. The reason why there was starvation then was because of the start of the Industrial Revolution, because of the cities. I'm talking about just every day going out, living on the land, that kind of life. Right. The happiness that was had there is far greater. We are less happy. I was waiting in the car for you yesterday, and Leah went into the store, and we're parked behind a car that has a Duck Dynasty sticker on the back of it. So I'm thinking, okay, Republican, probably. And I see this couple come out, and they're probably in their 50s or 60s. And obviously, if you're watching Duck Dynasty, you're, you know, probably the type of person that I'm going to be able to have a discussion with. And just sitting in the car watching them, I sensed this, and you never know what anybody's going through. That's not the point. I sense this irritation, and I see the husband kind of snap at the wife, and she says, "Can I have some tissues?" And they're getting the tissues out, and he's like, "Why didn't you open the door?" And they're snapping back and forth. And I'm not saying that in years prior, husbands and wives didn't have spats and bad days. But what I have seen in my own personal life, and I believe that you guys have seen it too, is a worldwide depression where people are, if you're going to lean one way or the other, in a bad mood. Encompass depression, sadness, anger, anxiety, all in that. Okay, then they are happy. Kansas walks around with a smile on his face almost always. And it's so rare that when people see him, complete strangers ask him why he's smiling. It's almost like they want to know, like, what is your secret to your happiness? Why are you happy all the time? Or are you kind of weird because nobody should be happy all the time like that? It is the joy of the Lord inside of him, but at the same time, it's living a normal life where you don't have to be irritated all of the time. So we're living this life of depression where all of the things that we thought that we wanted, and once we could achieve them, this intellectual, intelligent superiority that we now have over the past, 8,000 years.
And we are so glad that you guys are with us, and we're glad that you found technology, and we're glad that you're talking to us. But I think Michelle is getting to a point because of all this great industrial revolutionary stuff. I feel better when I'm making homemade soap or I'm out in the garden.
Right.
And I'm not at anywhere near this technology. But guess what? I can't go out and live in the world like that because just like in the rainforest deforestation, they're coming at me.
Yeah.
They won't let me live that way.
And so
I'm not allowed to live that way. So what it is
like battling a war. We're in that same depression, right? That's what I was getting at. That these families that lived in World War I and World War II that felt all of the time the weight of this war. So even if you interact with people in your everyday lives, they don't know who Candace Owen is. They don't know about Blexit. They don't know these things that you know. They don't know about the Federal Reserve. But they feel the weight of the war that we are in right now every single day. So if you want to reach somebody, that's how you're going to reach them. Okay? We're fighting a war and you don't even know it. You're feeling the ramifications. Maybe you don't need depression medicine. Maybe you need to jump on the let's change our country bandwagon.
Those are the people that are finding more happiness. But the people who people who aren't on like the Trumpinian, Salvini, Viktor Orban bandwagon, they're angry, they're depressed, and they're mad at Trump. They're mad because they think that Trump's brought about this anger and violence. Well, if you look at World War I, World War II, Vietnam War, there's anger and violence, and Trump didn't start it. Yeah. He's trying to stop it. We're trying to stop it. We want to bring families back. We want to make people happy again. We want to make families great again. And through that, through love, through Christianity. So we're
going to sign off here. I got a present yesterday that I'm not going to do now, from Leah in Kansas, but I think the next time we do a show, I want to devote a segment to that. And not just Leah in Kansas, from my mom and Uncle Jack as well, that I literally was in tears crying and excited about. So I want you guys to look forward to that. We're going to sign off. Happy Armistice Day, happy Remembrance Day, happy Independence Day, happy Veterans Day. Did I cover all the days that today represents? We love you.
God loves you.
God bless. Thank you all for your service if you're a serviceman in the United States. And we are congratulating Poland for their 100 years. So exciting because we feel like we have a family in our Polish viewers.
Yes.
We love you all. Like, comment, and subscribe.
To Mass Faith 3 and Resistance Chicks.
Ring the bell for notifications. Find us on Facebook.
Follow us on Twitter.
Remember, it's not just a conspiracy theory.
If it's the truth.
Good night, guys.
You're playing Barry's thing, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot. No, we're not signing off. Why didn't you tell me that?
Because I thought you were going to go out with
We're going to go out with this. Britt Baza sent us this. Let me switch over here. I almost did forget. Thank goodness you're here.
Our second hymn is a patriotic anthem sung to the music of Gustav Holst.
I sent some scripture there at the end.
Yep.
All right, you guys. Thank you for that, Barry. So we really are going to sign off now.
Yep.
We will see you Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and probably before that.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
All right. See ya.
Good night, guys.
I was cold, all alone. No place for home every day. So afraid, but you called my name.